Hi, I'm Bill Reiner. I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist and a urologist who trained at Johns Hopkins in the 70s and then again in the 90s and was on the faculty there and at the University of Oklahoma. I treat almost exclusively kids and adolescents with bladder exstrophy and sometimes young adults as well. I wanted to talk a little bit today about adolescence and about the processes of adolescence. No one wants to really talk about it or hear about it, but it's actually very important. And I want to make a few general terms in the first part here so that we understand some of the basics. And the first thing I'd like to say is that we love to talk about stages, but the truth is there are no stages in human development. We start with fertility and a fertilized egg, and we move on through life until we die, and that is human development. And we develop throughout that time period. Yes, sometimes we develop more quickly, such as in childhood. Sometimes we apparently develop more intensely, or it appears so, in adolescence. But it is all a series of processes without stage. I'll talk a little bit about phases just to kind of give you some idea of the varieties. Some of the points that I'd like to make are that adolescence is not the same from person to person, and no, it's not true that the male brain doesn't mature until the mid-20s. The brain changes throughout life again, and certainly some of those changes are profound. Most of the major changes occur in childhood, including adolescence, but the brain changes right on through. And by the way, for all of you adolescents out there, I'll have to tell you that your parents are developing at the same time that you are because they've never been through these processes before, that is, raising adolescents either. So I think it's important to look at adolescence as a complex period for both the kids that are growing up and for the parents who are growing up with them in a different fashion. Aristotle talked essentially about the being, the person, as a being in work, being oneself. Well, that's really looking at the adult. When he looked at childhood and adolescence, he spoke about the being at work, becoming oneself, and that's really what adolescence is all about. Adolescence is really about becoming whoever you are and whoever you will be. And that process is an unknown process for any given person. We don't know who you're going to be, and you're not really sure who you're going to be, but you will become that. So looking at that as the basis of adolescence and about puberty and adolescent development, I think it's important, therefore, to realize that those processes are what are really going on. And there's no simple approach for the child to grow up. There's no simple approach for the parent to do the parenting. I always love to say to the kids that the only thing more difficult than raising an adolescent is being one, and I love to say to the parents that the only thing more difficult than being a parent is being an adolescent. They're similarly complex. There are going to be easy times, there are going to be hard times, and one of the key points that I think is important to realize is that kids with bladder exstrophy, for the most part, go through adolescence in a more intense style than their typical peers or even than their siblings tend to. They tend to look at things more intensely. They tend to be more intensely emotional about many of the emotional aspects of adolescence. And boy, there are many emotional aspects of adolescence. So I think it's important to realize for the adolescents as well as for the parents that none of these things are puppy-like or kitten-like. These are serious events that adolescents go through. They're important events, and they're all part of the process of becoming who you are as the adolescent. I think in the next couple of parts, what I want to talk about is some of the early aspects of adolescence. Later, we can talk about some of the middle aspects, not that these are stages, but phases. And then eventually we can talk in another part about the emerging adult, which I would say for most adolescents is going to be somewhere between 16 and 20 or 21 years of age. So those are the ways that I like to look at adolescence and talk to adolescents themselves about their own growing processes and talk to the parents about them as well.